I never imagined one quiet night at home would shatter everything I thought I knew. Hello, my name is Emily. I am 27 years old. And this story takes place in a small village just outside Bath, in the English countryside. After a long, exhausting day at the local library where I work, I returned home craving nothing more than peace. But that night, something unexpected happened, something that changed everything. The house was wrapped in a calm silence when I walked through the door, the only sound the steady ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hall. I tossed my keys onto the kitchen counter and slipped off my shoes, feeling the heavy weight of the day lift from my shoulders. It had been a relentless day, filled with endless tasks and demands, and I was more than ready to collapse into my cozy bed. As I made my way down the dimly lit hallway, the familiar path felt both comforting and strangely inviting. But then I noticed a soft, warm light spilling from under the guest room door. Caught me off guard. My Uncle James must have come by during the day. He had mentioned earlier that he might stay a few nights at my place instead of booking a hotel, as he often did when he visited Bath. The thought of him being here stirred a strange mix of emotions inside me. I paused for a moment, biting my lip, unsure of what to do next. The door shifted slightly, and curiosity mingled with unease. Slowly I pushed it open. My heart hammered wildly as I stepped inside. Uncle James was lying on the bed, his tall frame stretched out comfortably under a neatly folded duvet. He looked utterly peaceful. One arm rested lazily over his eyes, shielding them from the light, while his chest rose and fell with steady deep breaths. He was sound asleep. I couldn't help but smile softly at the sight. He seemed so serene, so completely relaxed in that moment. But what really caught my attention was the way his shirt had ridden up just enough to reveal a tantalizing glimpse of his toned stomach, framed by the waistband of his jeans. I stood there mesmerized, my heart racing in my chest. Part of me, my breath caught in my throat. A whirlwind of excitement and dread battled within me. What was I doing? This was wrong. So wrong. But the moment was overwhelming. A wave crashed over me and I couldn't stop myself. I leaned in closer, eyes fixed on his face, so familiar, yet in that instant somehow distant. My heart raced uncontrollably as I pressed a gentle, almost invisible kiss to his hand. His skin was warm and inviting against my lips, the faint scent of his cologne dizzying my senses, igniting a heady longing. I was breathless, consumed by a craving that pulsed like a relentless drumbeat inside me. "James," I whispered again, my voice trembling as I let my lips trail upward along his arm, planting soft, teasing kisses in my wake. Each kiss was a spark, a flicker of heat that spread through my belly, quickening my pulse. He moved again, a quiet moan rising from deep within his chest. My heart leapt in response. Panic flickered for a moment, but then he sighed, his body relaxing back into the mattress. I exhaled shakily, relief washing over me, and continued my exploration. Slowly, my lips traveled higher, kissing his shoulder before pausing just above the collar of his shirt. The top button was undone, revealing the defined lines of his neck and the curve of his collarbone, a tempting sight that stole my breath away. I swallowed hard, my gaze locked on that small patch of bare skin. What would it feel like to press my lips there, to trail my tongue along the hollow of his neck? The thought made me shiver. A flush spread across my cheeks, the forbidden nature of my actions dancing dangerously in my mind. It was madness. I shouldn't be doing this. But before I could talk myself out of it, desire surged through me again, and I leaned in, pressing my lips softly against his neck. The sound he made was barely audible, a low, almost purring murmur, and I froze. My breath caught. It was a sound of pleasure, and a shiver ran down my spine. Then, to my surprise, his hand slid upward, cradling the back of my head with a touch that was gentle but firm. My eyes widened in shock, heart stalling as I realized he was awake. "Emily," he murmured, his voice low and husky, still heavy with sleep but layered with something darker, something more intense that sent my pulse racing uncontrollably. "What are you doing?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, trembling with a mixture of shock and embarrassment. My cheeks burned fiercely, heat spreading like wildfire from my face down my neck. Panic gripped me and I knew I should pull away, apologize, flee the room, pretend none of this ever happened. But I was frozen, caught in the magnetic pull of his gaze and the gentle possessive pressure of his fingers holding me firmly in place. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me?" he breathed, pulling me closer, his lips brushing seductively against my ear. The warmth of his breath sent shivers racing down my spine. You have no idea how long I've wanted this. My breath hitched in my throat. A tidal wave of shock and confusion crashed over me, threatening to drown me in its intensity. Wanted what? I whispered back, my voice barely above a breath, as if speaking aloud might shatter the fragile reality we were sharing. He growled softly, a sound that vibrated deep in his chest and echoed through my body. His other hand slid down, wrapping around my waist and effortlessly lifting me onto the bed beside him. I gasped as my body pressed against his heat, every point of contact igniting a fierce, wild fire of desire inside me. I've wanted you, Emily, he confessed, his voice rough with need but laced with a vulnerability that made my heart ache. I never thought I'd get the chance. Before he could finish, he leaned in, capturing my lips with his in a kiss that stole my breath away. It was urgent and passionate, his mouth consuming mine with a hunger that left me dizzy and helpless. I gasped softly, instinctively clutching at his shirt, pulling him closer, my body responding to his every movement as if it knew this was the moment it had been waiting for. James, I whispered, trying to find words to gather myself, but he silenced me with a deep, demanding kiss. His hands roamed freely, slipping beneath my sweater to brush teasingly against my bare skin, sending jolts of electricity through every nerve ending. I shivered under his touch, arching instinctively as he explored, the heat between us building to an unbearable intensity. Tell me you want this, he whispered into my ear, his breath hot and heavy fingers tracing a slow, tantalizing path up my ribs. Say it, and I'll stop if you want me to. My body trembled with uncertainty and longing. Did I want this? The question echoed through my mind, but my heart and body knew the answer without hesitation. I pressed closer, surrendering to the moment, and whispered, I want you. He moaned softly, a sound that reverberated deep inside me. His grip tightened and his lips found mine again, this time deeper, more demanding, as if he was trying to claim every part of me. His hand slipped beneath my sweater, pulling it over my head and exposing me to him completely. I felt exposed and vulnerable, but also powerful in a way I had never known. His eyes darkened with raw hunger as he drank in every curve, every line of my body. You're driving me insane, he murmured, his voice thick with desire. Do you know that? I shivered, my body aching for more as his hands traced teasing patterns across my skin. His lips followed the path of his fingers, leaving a trail of fire in their wake. I gasped when he pressed kisses along my collarbone, his touch light but electric. Emily, he whispered close to my throat. Tell me again. Tell me you want me. My eyes fluttered closed, every nerve on fire as I breathed out. I want you. I need you. The room seemed to shrink around us, the air thick with tension and heat. His hand slid lower, exploring the curves of my waist and hips, sending waves of pleasure that left me breathless and trembling. Please, I whispered, desperate and aching. Don't stop. And he didn't. The night stretched out before us, thick with a tension so electric it crackled in the air like a storm ready to break. As James and I lay tangled together, the boundaries of what was right and wrong blurred into a haze of longing and desire that neither of us dared resist. The warmth of his body against mine, the steady rhythm of his breath, and the slow, deliberate movements of his hands stirred something deep inside me, a forbidden fire that consumed every rational thought. I could feel his fingers tracing patterns along my skin, each touch sending shivers coursing through my body. His lips followed, pressing soft, tantalizing kisses along my collarbone and down my chest, igniting a trail of heat that left me gasping. The scent of his cologne mixed with the faint musk of sleep, enveloping me in a cocoon of intimacy that felt both thrilling and terrifying. His eyes, dark and burning with an intensity one had never seen before, held mine as he whispered, You're so beautiful, Emily. I can't get enough of you. His voice was low, rough with desire, and it sent a thrill racing through me. I arched into his touch, my body responding instinctively to the waves of pleasure his hands and lips unleashed. Every nerve ending seemed alive, on fire, craving more of him, more of this moment that felt suspended in time. I bit my lip, trying to steady my racing heart, but it was no use. The raw need pulsing between us was overwhelming. As his hand slipped beneath the waistband of my jeans, I shivered with anticipation and a touch of fear. What were we doing? Where was this leading? But the questions dissolved beneath the tide of sensation. All I could think about was him. His touch, his warmth, the way he looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. "Emily," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I've wanted you for so long. I never thought this could happen." There was a vulnerability in his words, a crack in the armor of desire that made my chest tighten. I reached up, brushing my fingers through his hair, pulling him closer. "Neither did I," I whispered. "But now that it's here, I don't want it to end." His lips found mine again, softer this time, filled with a tenderness that made my heart ache. The passion still burned beneath the surface, but now it was wrapped in something deeper. Something like love, or maybe the desperate hope for it. We moved together slowly, exploring the new territory between us with a mixture of urgency and reverence. Every touch, every kiss, every breath was a silent promise, a confession of feelings too complicated to put into words. I felt exposed and vulnerable, but also fiercely alive. As the night wore on, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only James and me, tangled in sheets and emotions, caught in a moment that was as beautiful as it was forbidden. And despite the turmoil swirling in my mind, the guilt, the fear, the uncertainty, I couldn't deny the truth burning in my heart. This was no longer just desire. This was something far more dangerous, something that could change everything. The dawn crept softly through the curtains, casting a gentle golden glow across the room where James and I lay entwined. The night's passion still lingered in the air, thick and heady, as if time itself hesitated to move forward. My body ached with a mixture of pleasure and an undeniable tension simmering beneath the surface, a tension born from the forbidden nature of what we had shared. I traced the strong lines of James's jaw with trembling fingers, feeling the rough stubble beneath my touch. His eyes fluttered open, revealing a storm of emotions: desire, confusion, and something darker, more complicated. He smiled softly, a slow curve of lips that both comforted and unsettled me. "Morning," he whispered, voice husky with sleep and something else I couldn't quite place. "Morning," I replied, my own voice barely above a breath. My heart pounded fiercely in my chest, a mix of exhilaration and dread twisting inside me. What had we done? What did it mean? James shifted, pulling me closer, his hand resting possessively on my waist. The warmth of his skin against mine was intoxicating, but a knot of guilt tightened in my stomach. I should have stopped, walked away, but I hadn't. I had let myself get lost in the moment, in him. He brushed a stray lock of hair from my face, his touch tender but firm. "Emily," he said softly, "we need to talk about this." I nodded, swallowing hard, the weight of reality crashing down like a tidal wave. "I know," I whispered. We sat up slowly, the sheets slipping from our bodies, revealing the traces of the night's intimacy. The room felt charged with unspoken words, secrets hanging heavy between us. James's gaze met mine, searching, questioning. "I never meant for this to happen," he confessed, his voice raw. "I've fought it for so long, but being here with you, it all became too much." My heart ached at his words. I had felt the same turmoil, the same forbidden longing that had consumed him. "Neither did I admitted, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "But now that it has, what do we do?" He sighed deeply, running a hand through his tousled hair. "I don't know," he said honestly. "This changes everything." I bit my lip, struggling to keep my emotions in check. The reality was harsh and undeniable. We had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The world outside our little sanctuary would never look the same again. But even as the weight of consequence settled over us, there was a flicker of something else, a stubborn hope that maybe, just maybe, we could navigate this forbidden path together. I looked into James's eyes, seeing the same mix of fear and desire mirrored there. And despite everything, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. The quiet tension hung between us like a fragile thread, stretched so thin I feared it might snap with the slightest word. James and I sat side by side on the edge of the bed, the morning light casting soft shadows across the room, revealing every curve and line of our exposed skin. That moment felt suspended in time, beautiful, terrifying, and utterly raw. I wrapped my arms around my knees, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. The reality of what had happened was crashing down with every heartbeat. This wasn't just a fleeting mistake or a momentary lapse. It was something far more complicated, more dangerous. Something that could unravel everything we'd ever known. James ran a hand through his hair, his eyes dark and troubled. "Emily," he began, his voice low and hesitant, "we need to think about what this means. For us. For the family." My heart clenched. Family. The word echoed through my mind like a warning bell. He was my uncle, yes, but in my mind he was so much more now, and that scared me to my core. "I know," I whispered, my voice fragile. "But I can't pretend I don't feel this way. I can't pretend it didn't happen." He reached out, his fingers brushing gently against my cheek. "Neither can I," he admitted. "But we have to be careful. So careful. If anyone found out, it could destroy everything." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling over me like a heavy fog. The thought of secrets, whispers, judgment, it was suffocating. But beneath it all, a stubborn flame of desire and connection burned bright, refusing to be extinguished. "Do you think we can keep this hidden?" I asked, fear and hope tangled in my voice. James hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We have to try. For now." I looked into his eyes, searching for some reassurance, some sign that this wasn't just a moment doomed to shatter under the weight of reality. There was warmth there and longing, but also a shadow of doubt that chilled me. "I don't want to lose you," I confessed, my voice trembling. "Not like this. Not after tonight." He smiled, a small bittersweet curve of his lips. "You won't. I promise." For a moment the world outside ceased to exist. There was only us, bound by a secret, entwined in something forbidden but undeniable. But deep down I knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, and the consequences of our actions would reach far beyond this room. As I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, a single thought echoed in my mind. How long could we keep this secret before everything fell apart? The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken fears and the weight of what we had crossed. I lay there, pressed against James's chest, listening to the steady thump of his heart beneath my ear. It was grounding, almost hypnotic, but my mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. How had this happened? How had we gone from cautious relatives to something so much more forbidden and intense? I couldn't shake the shock that still pulsed through me. The night's passion replayed in vivid detail behind my closed eyelids, the softness of his skin under my fingertips, the heat of his breath on my neck, the way his eyes had darkened with desire and something deeper. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, and terrifying all at once. In the quiet moments my thoughts spiraled. Could we have stopped it? Should we have? The answer was yes, but the magnetic pull between us was impossible to resist. Something had broken loose, something primal and raw that neither of us could deny. I thought about the consequences, the whispered judgments, the shattered trust, the potential fallout within our family. What if someone found out? Would they understand or condemn us? The fear of exposure tightened like a vice around my chest. Yet beneath that fear, a stubborn thread of hope wove through me, fragile but persistent. What if there was a way to make this right? To navigate the impossible? My heart ached with the question, knowing full well that the answers were anything but simple. "James," I finally whispered, my voice trembling in the stillness, "how do we fix this? Or can we?" He tightened his arms around me, his touch both comforting and possessive. "I don't have the answers," he said softly, "but I know I can't let you go. Not now. Not ever." His words sent a shiver down my spine, igniting a mixture of hope and dread. Could love really bloom from something so forbidden? Could we rewrite the rules and find a way through the chaos? The truth was I didn't know. But I was willing to try, even if it meant walking a dangerous line, even if it meant risking everything. Because deep inside, beneath the fear and the doubt, I knew one thing without question. I couldn't imagine a life without him. And that terrifying, exhilarating realization was just the beginning of a story I wasn't sure I was ready to tell. Just when I thought the night's intensity had reached its peak, everything shifted in a way I never saw coming. James's eyes darkened suddenly, flickering with a mixture of something fierce and urgent. The tender vulnerability that had wrapped around us so gently moments ago was replaced by a raw, almost desperate hunger that sent a jolt through my entire body. He pulled me closer, his grip tightening as if afraid to lose me. Then, without warning, his voice dropped to a low, commanding whisper. Emily, there's something you need to know. Something I haven't told anyone before. My breath caught in my throat. The air thickened around us, charged with anticipation and a hint of danger. I looked up at him, searching his face for clues, but his expression was unreadable, equal parts guarded and intense. What is it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. James hesitated, the muscles in his jaw tightening. It's about why I've always kept my distance, why I never stayed long when I visited. There's something complicated in my past, something that could change everything between us. My heart pounded wildly, a mix of curiosity and fear twisting inside me. I wanted to know, needed to understand, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. What secrets was he hiding? And how would they affect what we just shared? He took a shaky breath, then began to speak, his words tumbling out in a rush. Years ago, before I came to Bath, I was involved in something dangerous, something that still follows me. It's why I've been so careful, why I never let myself get close to anyone. I thought running away was the answer, but maybe I was just running from myself. The weight of his confession settled over me like a storm cloud. Suddenly, the man lying beside me was more than just my uncle, more than just the man I'd fallen for in this forbidden way. He was someone with a past tangled in shadows, someone carrying burdens I hadn't imagined. I reached out, taking his hand in mine, grounding him and myself in the moment. Whatever it is, we'll face it together, I said, my voice steady despite the whirlwind inside. But deep down, I knew this was no longer just about us. The secrets James carried threatened to pull us into a darkness far greater than I was ready to face. And as the morning light slipped away, replaced by the creeping shadows of uncertainty, I realized this story was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The room seemed to close in around us as James's revelation hung heavy in the air, thick with tension and unspoken fears. His words echoed in my mind, each one unraveling the fragile sense of safety I had clung to, replacing it with a swirling storm of uncertainty. The man beside me, so tender and passionate just moments ago, was now a stranger bearing a past that threatened to consume us both. I reached out, my fingers trembling as they brushed against his hand, searching for reassurance in the warmth of his skin. James, I whispered. What exactly did you mean? What kind of danger are we talking about? He swallowed hard, eyes darkening with memories he clearly wished to bury. It's complicated, he admitted, voice low and rough. Years ago, I got involved with the wrong crowd, people who don't forget and don't forgive. I thought I left that life behind, but it seems it's caught up with me. That's why I've been so distant, why I never wanted to stay too long. I was protecting you and myself. My heart pounded as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a secret. It was a threat looming over us, a shadow poised to shatter the fragile bubble we'd created. The forbidden nature of our relationship suddenly felt even more dangerous, tangled with risks far beyond what I had imagined. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, hurt and confusion swirling inside me. I was scared, he confessed, eyes searching mine. Scared of losing you, scared of dragging you into my mess. But now, I don't want to hide anymore. I want you to know the truth. I want us to face whatever comes, together. The determination in his voice sparked something fierce inside me, a fierce desire to stand by him no matter the cost. But the fear still lingered, gnawing at the edges of my courage. What if this darkness was too much? What if it destroyed everything? Before I could answer, a sudden noise outside the window made us both freeze, sharp footsteps crunching on the gravel driveway, a shadow flickering just beyond the curtains. Our eyes met in alarm. The danger wasn't just in the past anymore. It was here, closing in fast. James's hand tightened around mine, his jaw clenched with resolve. Stay here, he ordered quietly. I'll handle this. But as he moved toward the door, I felt a surge of panic clawing at my chest. I wasn't about to let him face this alone. Whatever secrets, whatever threats awaited us, we were in this together. And as the door creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, I knew our lives were about to change forever. The forbidden had become a battlefield, and neither of us was prepared for the war to come. The tension in the room was suffocating, thick as the shadows that spilled in from the doorway when James opened it. The figure standing there was cloaked in darkness, their presence unsettling and charged with menace. My heart hammered wildly in my chest as I strained to make out their features, but the dim light kept them shrouded in mystery. James's body tensed, muscles coiled like a spring ready to snap. His eyes flicked to me for a brief moment, a silent warning, a plea to stay back, before he squared his shoulders and stepped forward. The dangerous atmosphere crackled between them, words unspoken but heavy with threat. I wanted to move, to run, to scream, but I was rooted to the spot, caught helpless in this storm I didn't understand but was now trapped inside. The air seemed to hum with an invisible charge, every second stretching endlessly. Suddenly, the visitor's voice cut through the silence, low and menacing. "James, you thought you could hide, didn't you? But some debts don't just disappear." A shiver raced down my spine as the implication sank in. This was the past James had tried to escape, the darkness he'd hoped to bury. And now it was here in my home, threatening to pull us both under. James's jaw tightened, but he didn't back down. "I'm not the man I was," he said steadily. "Leave now before things get worse." The stranger laughed, a cold, mirthless sound that echoed in the quiet room. "You can't run forever. And neither can she." My breath caught. Me? What did I have to do with this? Panic surged through me, mingling with a fierce protective instinct. James's hand found mine, squeezing tight, grounding me even as the danger closed in. In that moment everything shifted. The forbidden passion, the secret desires, all seemed insignificant compared to the storm raging just beyond the walls of this room. We were no longer two people caught in a complicated relationship. We were allies, standing on the edge of a battle that threatened to consume us both. The visitor took a step forward, and James moved to block him, the air crackling with the promise of confrontation. My pulse raced as I held my breath, caught between fear and a strange, fierce hope. Because whatever came next, one thing was clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. And as the first words of a dangerous negotiation hung in the air, I knew this was only the beginning of a fight for everything we held dear. Our love, our secrets, and our very lives. The room felt charged, every breath heavy with anticipation as James and the shadowy figure locked eyes. A silent battle of wills that threatened to explode at any moment. I clung to James's hand, the warmth grounding me even as my mind spiraled with fear and uncertainty. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was the breaking point where everything we had tried to keep hidden was about to unravel. The stranger's voice cut sharply through the stillness. "You owe more than you think, James. And now so does she." The words hung in the air like a sinister promise, sending a cold wave of dread through me. What did he mean by she? What danger had I unknowingly stepped into? James's eyes darkened with resolve, his jaw clenched tight. "I won't let you hurt her," he growled, stepping protectively in front of me. "Whatever your game is, it ends here." The intruder smirked, a cruel curve of lips that sent chills down my spine. "You're brave but foolish. This isn't just about debts or past mistakes. This is a reckoning. And reckoning always comes at a price." As the tension mounted, I felt the weight of everything crashing down. The forbidden love, the secrets, the looming threat. My heart pounded wildly, caught between terror and a fierce determination. I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I was part of this dangerous dance, entwined in a story far bigger than I had ever imagined. James tightened his grip on my hand, pulling me close. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," he vowed. His voice was low, steady, a lifeline amidst the chaos. But just as the room seemed ready to explode with confrontation, the stranger's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "This isn't over, James," he hissed. "The past always finds a way." And with that, he vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a silence that was heavy with threat and uncertainty. I looked up at James, my body trembling, not just from fear, but from the wild, tangled emotions that now defined us. The line between love and danger had blurred beyond recognition, and the road ahead was shrouded in shadows. Yet, despite everything, one truth blazed clear. I would never let him go, no matter what the cost. And as we stood there, caught between the past and an uncertain future, I knew this was only the beginning of a story that would test every limit and change us forever.